Tonight we will journey through a time of preparation as we explore a future through the eyes of a young man named Josiah. In the aftermath of what would eventually be called the Great Devastation, a series of catastrophic natural disasters followed by worldwide wars that had redrawn borders and returned much of civilization to a simpler time, there stood a small village named Solara. Nestled between mountains that had survived the earthquakes and floods, Solara was one of the rare communities that had managed to preserve both technology and faith when so many others had lost both. Here lived a young man named Josiah, who had grown up hearing stories of the world before it broke. In an era of relative peace, the village elders called the former days. But now the skies grew darker each season, not just with storm clouds, but with a shadow that made even the birds grow silent. Josiah was no ordinary boy. He had dreams, vivid ones, of a bright man clothed in glory, calling him to a great purpose. Each time he woke, the words from the dream stayed with him like warm embers in his heart. Open your mouth and declare my gospel. The time is now. Be not afraid, for I am with you. He didn't understand exactly what it meant, but he felt its truth deep in his soul. One morning, Josiah climbed to the top of the eastern hill, where he often went to pray. The wind was unusually still, and the valley below was quiet. As he knelt, a whisper drifted through the trees, not from the wind, but from the Spirit. Josiah, the hour of your mission is come. Rejoice and declare glad tidings of great joy unto this generation. His heart thudded. The words from his dreams, now spoken again. He opened his eyes and noticed a figure standing a short distance away, an old man with a beard like starlight and a staff glowing faintly with fire. I am Brother Callum, the man said. The Lord has sent me to give you your calling. Josiah blinked. Me? Brother Callum nodded. The field is white, all ready to harvest. You are called to lift up your voice like a trumpet, to declare the coming of the King. For the time is soon at hand that he shall come in a cloud with power and great glory. Josiah trembled, but Brother Callum smiled gently. Fear not what man can do, for the Lord is with you. Speak with all your soul, strengthen others and prepare them. Josiah whispered, But what if I don't know what to say? Brother Callum placed the glowing staff in Josiah's hand. Open your mouth, and it shall be filled. Say, Repent, repent, and prepare the way of the Lord. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And with that, the old man vanished like mist in the morning. Josiah returned home to his mother and father, who noticed his solemn expression and the glowing staff in his hands. His father, a master woodworker, nodded slowly. Your calling has come. But how did you know? Josiah asked. His father's face shone with a humble knowing. The Lord called me once too. We are part of a long line of watchers awaiting his return. That night, Josiah knelt and prayed, Lord, be with me. I do not know the way, but I trust thy path. A calm settled over him. so complete and still it reminded him of one of the elders' words, which he had once heard in the village meeting house. The promise of his peace is not a guarantee we will not be afflicted, but stillness and peace are available in the midst of hardship. When he awoke, the world had changed. Dark clouds covered the valley. Rumors of war in the north and plague in the west had reached Solara. The villagers whispered of famines and failing crops. But in the midst of all this fear, Josiah stood in the village square and spoke. Hearken to the voice of the Lord, whose word is quick and powerful, sharper than a two-edged sword. Some mocked him, others listened, a few believed. One of those was a girl named Mira, who had a gift for music and a heart like fire. I have seen the same dreams, she told Josiah. He will come to his temple. We must be ready for the millennium to begin. And so, together, they began to gather others. As weeks passed, Josiah and Mira visited villages and towns, preaching and calling others to prepare. They carried lanterns, not just ordinary ones, but ones that glowed only when the bearer was faithful and filled with the Spirit. Mira called them lanterns of the watchers. We must trim our lamps and carry oil, she reminded everyone, for the bridegroom comes quickly. Josiah taught them to pray, always, to be meek and lowly of heart, and to follow the Comforter's voice. With each person who joined their cause, another lantern was lit, and the darkness receded a little more. In one village, a group of children followed them through the streets, fascinated by the glowing lanterns. "How do you make them shine?" a small boy asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Josiah knelt beside him. "The light comes from faith, little one. When we truly believe and act on that belief, the Lord fills our lamps with his light." The boy reached out to touch Josiah's lantern, and to everyone's surprise, it glowed brighter at his touch. "I believe," the boy said simply. That evening, his parents joined the gathering, bringing 5 more families with them. As they sat by the fire, an old woman approached. "I heard your message," she said, "but why now? Why should we prepare now?" Mira answered softly, "Because the 11th hour is upon us, and this is the last time he shall call laborers into his vineyard before his glorious return." The woman nodded slowly and lit her lantern. From then on, she walked beside them, and her wisdom brought many to listen. As their company grew, so did the challenges they faced. In one town, the local leader forbade them to speak. "Your talk of the end times brings only fear," he declared. Josiah stood before him, staff in hand. "We bring not a message of fear, but hope. Not judgment alone, but mercy. The Lord comes to usher in 1,000 years of peace, to bind Satan, and to reign personally upon the earth." The leader scoffed, but that night he also dreamt of light filling the valley. The next morning he sought out Josiah and asked for his own lantern. As their small band of believers grew, the Lord led them to the city of Lysar, home to an old but sacred temple. But when they arrived, they found the gates closed and covered in vines. No one had entered in years. "The temple is asleep," Mira whispered, "but he will come here. We must awaken it and prepare it for his return when he shall suddenly come to his temple." So they cleaned. They cleared the overgrowth. They sang hymns within its walls. And Josiah stood upon the steps and declared, "Gird up your loins, for he shall suddenly come to his temple." Many laughed, others threatened them, but some wept and believed, and each night the temple grew brighter. An elderly scholar named Thomas joined them in their work. "I have studied the ancient texts all my life," he told Josiah. "They speak of signs that would precede the Lord's coming. I see those signs now, in our day: the gathering of Israel, the restoration of temples, and the spreading of the gospel to the four corners of the earth." Together, they taught the people about the sacred covenants, the power of ordinances, and the blessings of temple worship. Slowly, the temple became a beacon of hope in the darkening world. Josiah remembered more of the wise elders' words. Being still does not mean being silent. It means trusting God enough to act in faith. And so they acted. Day after day, they worked to prepare not just the temple, but the hearts of the people. They established schools where children learned of the Lord's ways. They organized storehouses for the coming trials. They planted gardens and taught self-reliance. In all things, they sought to be as one heart and one mind, knowing that unity would be their strength as the day of his coming approached. One night, while the lanterns burned around the temple, a dark figure entered the courtyard. His cloak shimmered with shadows, and his eyes were like voids. "You preach foolishness," he hissed. "There is no millennium coming. There is no light." Josiah stood firm. "We are not afraid, for the Lord is with us until he comes to reign upon the earth for 1,000 years." Mira raised her lantern, and it flared so brightly, the figure shrieked and fled into the night. But the encounter left a chill in their hearts. That night, 3 families left their company, fearing what might come. Josiah found Mira weeping by the temple gate. "They left because of fear," she said. "How many more will turn away when the final trials come?" Josiah placed his hand on her shoulder. "The Lord knew not all would endure to the end. That is why he calls us to be strong for others, to bear testimony even when darkness surrounds us." The next day, Brother Callum appeared again. "You have done well, Josiah. The time of trembling draws near, but remember, be patient in afflictions. Revile not those who revile you." Josiah asked, "Will he come soon?" Callum looked to the eastern horizon. "Yes, and when he does, it shall be a great day. All nations shall tremble, but those who believe shall rejoice, for the morning of the first resurrection shall dawn, and the righteous shall rise to meet him." As Callum predicted, the trials intensified. A drought parched the land. Disease swept through nearby cities, and those who opposed their message grew bolder, sometimes driving them from towns with threats and violence. Yet for every setback, there came unexpected blessings. A spring of fresh water was discovered near the temple. A physician joined their ranks and taught them healing arts, and their lanterns grew brighter, pushing back the encroaching darkness. Josiah taught them, "Be still in your hearts, even when the world rages. Know that God is with us, directing our paths toward the great and dreadful day of the Lord." One evening, as they gathered in the temple courtyard, they heard beautiful music unlike any they had heard before. Mira, whose gift for music had only grown stronger, led a choir of children in hymns of praise. "The veil grows thin," she told Josiah. "Sometimes I can hear the heavenly choirs joining ours, preparing for that great day when the Lord shall descend with the sound of trumpets." A year passed, then 2. The shadows thickened, but so did the light in the hearts of the people. The field was indeed white. Many had come to know the Lord and had gathered to the temple in Lesar. Their community now numbered in the hundreds. They had built homes near the temple, established farms and workshops, and created a place of refuge for all who would come. They had become a Zion people, of one heart and one mind, with no poor among them, preparing for the Lord's millennial reign. Josiah, now a young man of great faith, continued to teach and lead alongside Mira, whose wisdom and spiritual gifts had made her beloved by all. Together, they trained others to carry lanterns to distant lands, spreading the message of preparation and hope. The temple stood fully restored, its white stones gleaming even on the darkest nights. Within its walls, sacred ordinances bound families together for eternity in preparation for the great day when the veil would part. And one evening, as they gathered for prayer, the lanterns all flared at once. Mira turned to Josiah, eyes wide. "He comes." They knelt as a light brighter than the sun split the sky. A voice like the sound of many waters filled the air. "I am Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the light and life of the world." He descended in a cloud of glory, and the temple shone like the dawn of creation. All around the valley, people fell to their knees, overcome by the majesty and love that radiated from his presence. Even those who had doubted now believed, for none could deny what they saw and felt. He spoke, "Be faithful unto the end, and lo, I am with you. The time is now. My course is one eternal round. I have come to gather my elect and to usher in my millennial reign." And the people rejoiced. Josiah wept. All his doubts, his fears, his smallness, they melted in the presence of the Redeemer. And the Lord looked upon him and said, "You are my son. You believed, and now nothing shall prevail against you." The Lord walked among them, healing the sick, blessing the children, teaching truths that had been hidden from the foundation of the world. He established his kingdom upon the earth, binding Satan that he should have no place in the hearts of the children of men. And the lanterns, they were no longer needed, for his light filled every corner of creation as the millennium began. The righteous who had died were resurrected and joined them in the celebration. Those who were wicked were consumed by the brightness of his coming. And a new era of peace began, the promised 1,000 years, when Christ would reign personally upon the earth. In the peaceful valley of what was once Solara, now part of the Lord's millennial kingdom, Josiah and Mira taught the rising generations about the time before the second coming. Children, born into a world without sin or sorrow, listened with wide eyes to stories of the days of darkness and the lanterns of the watchers. What were the trials like before the Lord came? One child asked, unable to imagine a world where Christ did not dwell among them. Josiah smiled. There was fear and doubt and sometimes great sorrow, but there was also faith and hope and the promise that one day, this day, would come. Mira, sitting beside him, added, "And now we live in the time the prophets foretold, when the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea." The children looked around in wonder at the transformed world, where lions truly did lie down with lambs, where disease and death had been vanquished for the righteous, where the Lord himself taught in their temples and walked in their gardens. One small girl approached Josiah and touched his long beard. "Are you glad you kept your lantern lit, even when it was hard?" Josiah gathered her in his arms. "More glad than I can say, little one. For now we live in the perfect stillness of his peace, and we know that he is God." And in that peaceful valley, under the watchful gaze of their king, they continued to build the kingdom that would never end, even after the 1,000 years were finished and the final victory over death and hell would be complete. For the work of eternity had only just begun.